I will never forget the evening when my wife, Sarah, shattered our tranquil life with a single devastating sentence. We were sitting at the kitchen table having our usual dinner when she suddenly said, "John, I want your permission to cheat on you." My fork hovered in midair, disbelief rendering me motionless. "What did you just say?" I asked, hoping I had misheard, but her eyes were unwavering, her expression deadly serious. "I've met someone, John," she continued, her voice unnervingly calm. "His name is Michael. He's someone special from work. I still love you, but I need something new, something exciting." A storm of emotions brewed inside me, swirling from rage to profound hurt. "How can you ask me for something like that?" I shouted, the volume of my voice startling even myself. Yet Sarah remained composed, her determination unyielding. For days, I wrestled with my thoughts, trying to find some rational ground in this emotional chaos. I pleaded with her to consider therapy and to explore any other solutions that didn't involve breaking our vows. But she was resolute in her decision. After agonizing days and sleepless nights, I reluctantly agreed, hoping against hope that this would somehow save our marriage. I was willing to endure almost anything to keep our family intact. Sarah began spending more and more time with Michael. She assured me repeatedly that she had everything under control and that our relationship would remain unchanged. However, it wasn't long before I noticed her frequent absences and the growing distance between us. Our conversations dwindled into brief, perfunctory exchanges. My suspicions grew. This wasn't just about a physical relationship. Something deeper was at play. Sarah's comments about our future became increasingly vague, and she started hinting at a potential separation. One day, while cleaning the house, I stumbled upon her emails. Among them were messages to a lawyer, discussing the division of our assets and planning to take the majority of our savings. That evening, I confronted her. "Sarah, do you plan to take everything we've built together?" I demanded, looking directly into her eyes, searching for any hint of remorse. She didn't flinch. Calmly, she explained that she needed a fresh start and felt entitled to a significant portion of our wealth. The next few months were a blur of legal battles and emotional turmoil. I hired an attorney and braced myself for the fight ahead. It was a bitter, grueling process, each day a struggle for every dollar, every piece of property we owned. In court, I presented evidence of her infidelity and manipulations, hoping for some semblance of justice. But Sarah remained steadfast, her confidence unshaken. The divorce proceedings dragged on, each moment a painful reminder of the betrayal. In the end, the court ruled in her favor, granting her the majority of our assets and a substantial amount of money. I was left with a fraction of our former life's worth, grappling with the immense loss. But through the heartache and the betrayal, I found a sliver of hope. The ordeal had stripped me of nearly everything, yet it also offered a chance to rebuild. With resilience and determination, I vowed to start anew, to construct a future grounded in honesty and trust. And so, with my head held high, I stepped into the unknown, ready to reclaim my life from the ruins. The days following Sarah's shocking revelation were a haze of emotional turmoil. I felt as though I was drowning in a sea of confusion, anger, and heartbreak. Each time I looked at her, I was reminded of the woman I had loved and trusted for years, now seemingly a stranger. "John, you need to understand," she would say, her tone maddeningly composed. "This is just something I need to do for myself." But I couldn't understand. How could she claim to love me and still seek solace in another man's arms? The questions gnawed at me, keeping me awake at night. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying our conversations, and searching for answers that never came. Desperate for a solution, I suggested we see a marriage counselor. "Sarah, let's talk to someone. Maybe they can help us find a way through this," I pleaded, clinging to the hope that professional guidance could salvage our relationship. Sarah sighed, her patience wearing thin. "John, it's not about fixing something that's broken. I just need something different. It doesn't change how I feel about you." Her words felt like hollow reassurances, doing little to soothe the growing ache in my chest. As the days passed, I reluctantly realized that my efforts to change her mind were futile. She was resolute, and nothing I said or did could sway her. One evening, after another futile attempt to discuss our future, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the family photos on the mantelpiece. Each picture told a story of happier times, our wedding day, vacations, birthdays. Now those memories felt tainted, overshadowed by the looming specter of her infidelity. Finally, after days of internal struggle, I agreed to her request. "Fine, Sarah," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "If this is what you need, I'll try to accept it. But understand, this changes everything." With my reluctant consent, Sarah began spending more time with Michael. Her absences became more frequent, and the gap between us widened. She assured me that our marriage remained a priority, but her actions spoke otherwise. Every night she didn't come home on time, and every weekend she spent away, drove another wedge between us. Our home, once filled with warmth and laughter, grew cold and silent. I threw myself into work, trying to escape the pain that now pervaded every corner of my life. My colleagues noticed the change, offering concerned glances and hesitant inquiries, but I brushed them off, unwilling to share the sordid details of my unraveling marriage. Despite my efforts to maintain a semblance of normalcy, the emotional strain took its toll. I found myself growing distant from friends and family, unable to face their pity or judgment. It felt as though I was living in a fog, each day blurring into the next, devoid of joy or purpose. Then came the day that confirmed my worst fears. I found Sarah's emails to her lawyer, discussing in detail the division of our assets. She was planning to take almost everything: the house, our savings, even my retirement fund. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming. Not only had she broken our vows, but she was also plotting to strip me of everything we had built together. That night, with a heavy heart, I confronted her. "Sarah, do you intend to take everything from me?" My voice trembled with a mixture of anger and sadness. She met my gaze with the same infuriating calmness. "John, I need a fresh start. I believe I deserve a fair share of what we have." Her words stung each one a nail in the coffin of our marriage. The woman I once adored was now unrecognizable, her cold pragmatism a stark contrast to the loving partner I thought I knew. Determined not to go down without a fight, I hired a lawyer and began preparing for the inevitable divorce. The process was grueling, each day a battle for every asset, every dollar. Sarah was relentless, and so was I. The courtroom became our battleground, each of us presenting our case, fighting for what we believed was rightfully ours. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, I felt myself growing numb to the pain. The man I once was, hopeful, trusting, and optimistic, seemed like a distant memory. I was now a warrior, hardened by betrayal and loss, fighting to protect what little remained of my life. Despite the emotional and financial toll, I refused to give up. I clung to the hope that, once the dust settled, I could rebuild. I had lost so much, but I still had my resilience and determination. And with that, I knew I could find a way to start anew, no matter how daunting the future seemed. The courtroom was a cold, sterile place, its harsh fluorescent lights casting a stark glow over the proceedings. As I sat at the defendant's table, I felt the weight of the past months pressing down on me. Sarah, seated opposite, maintained her composure, her expression unreadable. This wasn't the woman I had shared my life with. She was a determined adversary, ready to claim what she believed was hers. My lawyer, David, leaned over and whispered, "Stay calm, John. We've got a strong case." I nodded, trying to muster some semblance of confidence. But inside, I was a churning mess of anxiety and anger. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. The divorce proceedings began with the usual formalities, and then the argument started. Sarah's lawyer, a sharp, eloquent woman named Linda, painted her as a devoted wife, seeking a new beginning after years of stagnation. "Mrs. Thompson has sacrificed much for this marriage," Linda argued. "She deserves a fair share of their accumulated wealth." When it was David's turn, he countered with evidence of Sarah's infidelity and manipulation. He presented the emails I had found, detailing her plans to take the majority of our assets. "Mr. Thompson has been blindsided by his wife's actions," David stated. "She seeks not just a fair share, but an unjust portion of their shared life." Throughout the trial, I couldn't help but steal glances at Sarah. Each time, I hoped to catch a flicker of remorse, a sign that the woman I loved was still in there somewhere, but her gaze remained steady, focused, and determined. As the days in court wore on, the emotional toll was immense. Friends and family, once supportive, seemed to drift away, unsure of how to deal with the ugly realities of our split. I found myself increasingly isolated, spending long nights poring over legal documents, preparing for each new round of arguments. The turning point came when we had to testify. I stood in the witness box, my hands trembling slightly as I recounted the events that had led us here. I spoke of the night Sarah had asked for permission to cheat, the pain of watching her drift away, and the betrayal I felt when I discovered her emails. Sarah took the stand next. She spoke confidently, painting a picture of a marriage that had lost its spark and a woman desperate for something more. She downplayed her relationship with Michael, framing it as a necessary step toward personal growth. The judge listened intently, his expression giving nothing away. When the testimonies concluded, the closing arguments were made, and then came the agonizing wait for a verdict. Finally, the day arrived, the judge took his seat, and the room fell silent. After careful consideration of the evidence and testimonies, he began, I've decided on the division of assets in the case of Thompson versus Thompson. My heart pounded in my chest as he continued. While Mrs. Thompson's actions have indeed shown a disregard for the sanctity of marriage, she is entitled to a portion of the shared assets. However, her claim for the majority of these assets is excessive. I am awarding Mr. Thompson a larger share of the savings and retaining ownership of the family home. A wave of relief washed over me. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was more than I had dared hope for. Sarah's face remained impassive, but I could see the flicker of disappointment in her eyes. As we left the courtroom, David clapped me on the back. You did well, John. Now you can start to rebuild. The settlement was bittersweet. I had managed to retain the house and a significant portion of our savings, but the process had left me drained and scarred. I returned to an empty home, the silence a stark contrast to the life we had once shared. In the weeks that followed, I focused on picking up the pieces. I poured my energy into my work, finding solace in the routine and the distraction it provided. Slowly, I reconnected with friends and family, allowing their support to bolster my resolve. One evening, as I sat on the porch, looking out over the yard Sarah and I had tended together, I realized that the worst was behind me. The legal battles were over, and while the emotional scars would take time to heal, I was finally free to move forward. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I knew that I had the strength to face it. With the remnants of my old life behind me, I was ready to embrace the future and whatever it held. After the trial, I hoped for some semblance of normalcy to return to my life. But even though the legal battles had ended, the emotional turmoil was far from over. The weight of Sarah's betrayal lingered, a constant reminder of how quickly everything I had believed in could crumble. Sarah moved out the day after the verdict was announced. Watching her pack her things felt surreal. Each item she took with her seemed to carry a piece of our shared history. As she loaded the last box into her car, she turned to me and said, I hope you find happiness, John. Her words sounded hollow, an empty consolation after everything she had done. With Sarah gone, the house felt unbearably quiet. I wandered from room to room trying to fill the void she left behind. It was during one of these lonely evenings that I decided to clean out the attic, hoping that the physical activity would distract me from my thoughts. As I sorted through old boxes, I stumbled upon a journal. It was Sarah's, hidden away in a dusty corner. Part of me hesitated to open it, knowing that it was a breach of privacy, but my need for answers overwhelmed my reservations. I needed to understand why she had done what she did. The journal entries spanned the entirety of our marriage. As I read, I discovered a side of Sarah I had never known. She wrote about her hopes and dreams, her fears and insecurities. She chronicled her growing dissatisfaction with our life and her feelings of being trapped and unfulfilled. And then, the entries took a darker turn, detailing her affair with Michael. It was painful to read her words, to see our life through her eyes. She described the excitement of her new relationship, the thrill of being with someone who made her feel alive again. But amidst the exhilaration, there were also doubts and guilt. She questioned her choices, wondering if she was making a mistake, yet feeling powerless to change course. One entry in particular stood out. She wrote about the night she asked for my permission to cheat. I never expected John to agree, she confessed. Part of me hoped he would fight for me, that he would refuse and make me reconsider. But he didn't. He let me go, and now I don't know if we can ever find our way back. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. In trying to save our marriage by conceding to her request, I had inadvertently pushed her further away. I had failed to understand what she truly needed, not permission to stray, but a sign that I still cared, that I was willing to fight for her and our relationship. I closed the journal, my heart heavy with regret. Understanding Sarah's perspective didn't absolve her of her actions, but it did provide some clarity. She had felt lost and disconnected, and in her search for fulfillment, she had made choices that ultimately destroyed us both. In the days that followed, I made a conscious effort to move forward. I focused on my work, throwing myself into projects that demanded my full attention. I reconnected with old friends, people I had neglected during the tumultuous months of the divorce. Their support was a lifeline, helping me navigate the emotional minefield I found myself in. I also sought therapy, determined to understand my role in the collapse of our marriage. Talking to a professional helped me process my emotions and gain a deeper understanding of myself. I realized that I had been complacent, taking our relationship for granted and failing to see the signs of Sarah's unhappiness. One afternoon, as I sat in my therapist's office, I made a vow to myself. I would learn from this experience and use it as a catalyst for personal growth. I would not let Sarah's betrayal define me or dictate my future. Instead, I would rebuild my life on a foundation of honesty and self-awareness. The path ahead was still uncertain, but I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I knew that healing would take time, and that there would be days when the pain of the past would resurface. But I also knew that I was stronger than I had ever given myself credit for. As summer turned to fall, I began to see glimmers of hope. The house, once a place of sorrow, started to feel like home again. I found joy in small things: a quiet evening with a good book, a weekend hike with friends, a new project at work. Slowly but surely, I was reclaiming my life. And though the scars of my marriage would always be there, I was determined to forge ahead, ready to embrace whatever the future held. Life had started to regain some semblance of normalcy. The routine of work, therapy, and reconnecting with friends provided a structure that helped keep the past at bay. Yet, there remained an unresolved tension, a lingering sense of unfinished business that kept me from fully moving on. One crisp autumn afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I received an unexpected call from Sarah. I hadn't heard from her since she moved out, and the sound of her voice sent a jolt of mixed emotions through me. "John, can we meet? There's something I need to talk to you about," she said, her tone unusually somber. Reluctantly, I agreed. We arranged to meet at a small cafe that evening, a neutral ground where we could talk without the ghosts of our shared past haunting us. As I walked in, I saw her already seated, staring out the window. She looked different, older, wearier, as if the weight of her decisions had finally caught up with her. "Thank you for meeting me," she began as I sat down. "I know it's been a long time, and I understand if you don't want to hear what I have to say, but I need to explain." I nodded, signaling her to continue. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "I've had a lot of time to think about everything that's happened, the divorce, the affair, all of it, and I realize now how much I hurt you. I thought I knew what I wanted, but I was wrong." Her words stirred a mix of anger and sadness within me. "Why now, Sarah? Why do you want to talk about this now?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "Because I need to make amends. I've been seeing a therapist too, and it's helped me see things more clearly. I was so consumed by my dissatisfaction that I didn't see the damage I was causing. I thought leaving would make things better, but it only made me realize what I lost." Her admission was both a relief and a burden. Part of me had longed for this acknowledgement, this validation of my pain, but another part of me resented her for dredging up old wounds. "Sarah, you can't just say sorry and expect everything to be fine. You took everything from me. You made choices that destroyed our marriage." "I know," she replied softly, "and I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, truly sorry. I've been trying to make sense of my actions, and I understand if you never want to see me again. But I needed to tell you." There was a long silence as I absorbed her words. The anger that had fueled me for so long began to dissipate, replaced by a profound sense of sadness. "I appreciate your apology, Sarah, but it doesn't change what happened. We both have to live with the consequences of our actions." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand, I wanted you to know." We sat there for a while longer, talking about the past, our mistakes, and the lessons we had learned. It wasn't a reconciliation. but it was a necessary conversation, a step toward closure. As we parted ways, I felt a strange sense of peace. Sarah's apology didn't erase the pain, but it provided a sense of resolution. I could finally close that chapter of my life and focus on the future without the weight of unanswered questions. In the days that followed, I continued my journey of self-discovery and healing. My sessions with the therapist became less about the past and more about building a new future. I started setting goals for myself, small steps toward personal growth and fulfillment. I also reconnected with old hobbies and passions that I had neglected during the turmoil of my marriage. I joined a local hiking club, something I had always wanted to do but never found the time for. The physical activity and the beauty of nature provided a welcome respite from the emotional strain. One weekend, during a particularly challenging hike, I met a group of people who would become close friends. Their camaraderie and support reminded me that life still held many possibilities, many opportunities for joy and connection. Through these new experiences, I began to rediscover parts of myself that had been lost. I realized that my identity was not solely defined by my marriage or its dissolution. I was more than just a husband or an ex-husband. I was an individual with dreams, aspirations, and the capacity for happiness. As winter approached, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey of healing was ongoing, but I was no longer defined by my past. I was ready to embrace the future, armed with the lessons I had learned and the strength I had found within myself. Sarah's apology had been a turning point, allowing me to finally let go of the anger and resentment. It had given me the closure I needed to truly move on. And with that, I stepped into the next chapter of my life, ready to face whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. Winter settled over the city, bringing with it a sense of quiet introspection. The holiday season, usually a time of warmth and togetherness, felt different this year. It was my first winter alone, but instead of succumbing to loneliness, I decided to embrace the solitude as an opportunity for growth and renewal. The house, which had once felt like a prison of memories, began to transform. I took on the project of redecorating, making the space my own. Each change I made, from new furniture to fresh paint on the walls, was a step towards reclaiming my life. It was therapeutic, a physical manifestation of the internal rebuilding I was undergoing. My newfound friends from the hiking club became a crucial part of this process. We organized weekend hikes, exploring the snowy trails and sharing stories around campfires. Their support and companionship were invaluable, reminding me that I wasn't alone in this journey. One evening, after a particularly invigorating hike, we gathered at a cozy cabin for a potluck dinner. As the fire crackled and laughter filled the air, I realized how much my life had changed. These people, who had entered my life during its darkest period, had become a second family. It was a new kind of happiness, different from what I had known, but just as fulfilling. Among the group was Emma, a vibrant and kind-hearted woman with a passion for the outdoors. We often found ourselves paired together on hikes, sharing conversations that ranged from the profound to the mundane. Her presence was a breath of fresh air, and I found myself looking forward to our time together. One snowy afternoon, while we were hiking through a particularly picturesque forest, Emma and I lingered behind the group, our conversation flowing effortlessly. "John, you've come a long way since we first met," she said, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the winter sun. I smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. "I have, and I couldn't have done it without all of you." Emma paused, looking at me thoughtfully. "You know, it's okay to let yourself be happy again. You deserve it." Her words resonated deeply. For so long I had been focused on healing and rebuilding, on overcoming the past. But now I realized it was time to start looking towards the future, with hope and optimism. "Thank you, Emma," I replied, my heart lighter than it had been in a long time. "I think I'm finally ready." As the winter months passed, my relationship with Emma deepened. We started spending more time together outside of the hiking club, discovering shared interests and building a connection that felt natural and unforced. It wasn't a whirlwind romance, but a steady, growing bond built on mutual respect and understanding. Emma's presence in my life was a reminder that new beginnings were possible, even after profound loss. She didn't try to erase my past or fix my broken pieces. Instead, she accepted me as I was, scars and all. Her support and companionship became a crucial part of my healing journey. Meanwhile, I continued to focus on my career, finding renewed energy and passion in my work. My colleagues noticed the change, commenting on my improved mood and productivity. It felt good to be recognized for my efforts and to see tangible results of my hard work and dedication. One day, my boss called me into his office. "John, I've been impressed with your performance lately," he said, handing me a letter. "We'd like to offer you a promotion. You've earned it." I opened the letter, my heart racing with excitement. It was the validation I needed, proof that I was moving forward and rebuilding not just my personal life, but my professional one as well. "Thank you," I replied, my voice filled with gratitude. "I won't let you down." As spring approached, bringing with it a sense of renewal and growth, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The man who had been shattered by betrayal was now stronger, more resilient, and ready to embrace whatever the future held. Sarah's betrayal had been a turning point, a catalyst for change and self-discovery. It forced me to confront my weaknesses and find the strength I didn't know I possessed. And now, with a renewed sense of purpose and a heart open to new possibilities, I was ready to step into the next chapter of my life. Looking back, I realized that the journey through pain and loss had ultimately led me to a place of healing and hope. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up, forging new connections and rediscovering old passions. And with Emma by my side, I knew that the future held endless possibilities. As I stood on the threshold of this new beginning, I felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. I had come a long way from the depths of despair, and while the scars of the past would always be a part of me, they no longer defined me. I was ready to embrace the future with open arms, confident in my ability to create a life filled with joy, purpose, and love. As spring blossomed into summer, life seemed to be moving in the right direction. The promotion at work brought new challenges and responsibilities, which I embraced with vigor. My relationship with Emma continued to grow, bringing a sense of companionship and warmth I hadn't felt in years. Yet, even as the days grew longer and brighter, shadows from the past began to resurface. One evening, as Emma and I were preparing dinner together, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from a name I hadn't seen in months, Michael. My heart skipped a beat as I opened the message. "John, I hope this message finds you well. I know it's been a while, but there are things I need to discuss with you. Can we?" Michael stared at a mix of anger and curiosity within me. Was Michael reaching out? Could he possibly have to say that hadn't already been said in court? Sensing my unease, Emma looked over. "Is everything okay?" I showed her the email, and she frowned. "Do you want to meet him?" "I don't know," I admitted. Part of me wants to ignore it, but another part is curious about what he has to say. Emma placed a reassuring hand. "Whatever you decide, I'm here for you." After a night of restless, I decided I needed closure, and this meeting might provide the final piece of the puzzle. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe the following afternoon. As I entered the cafe, I saw Michael sitting at a corner table looking nervous. When he saw me, he stood up, extending a hand. I hesitated before shaking it, the old anger still simmering beneath the surface. "John, thanks for coming," he began, his voice. "I know this is unexpected, but I needed to talk to you." I sat down, keeping my expression neutral. "What is it, Michael? What could you possibly have to say now?" he said, running a hand through his hair. "I know I don't deserve your time, but I've been carrying this guilt for months. I wronged you, and I need to apologize." His words were unexpected, and I couldn't help but feel a flicker of anger. "You think an apology can fix what you did?" "No," he replied quickly. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to explain. Sarah and I ended after the trial. She realized she made a mistake, and so I you in ways I can't even begin to understand." The revelation hit me hard. Sarah and Michael were no longer together. It was a bittersweet vindication, but it didn't erase the pain they had caused. So why tell me this now? Because I've seen what our actions did to you, and I couldn't live with myself without trying to make amends. I know it's too late, but I had to try. I leaned back, considering his words. Part of me wanted to lash out, to make him feel the pain he had inflicted. But another part of me, the part that had spent months in therapy and self-reflection, knew that holding on to anger would only hurt me more. "Michael, I appreciate your apology," I said slowly. "But understand that it doesn't erase what happened. You and Sarah made your choices, and we all have to live with the consequences." He nodded, looking relieved despite my harsh tone. "I understand. Thank you for hearing me out." As I left the cafe, I felt a strange sense of release. Confronting Michael had brought a measure of closure, allowing me to finally put that chapter behind me. In the following weeks, I threw myself even more into my work and my relationship with Emma. We took a trip to the coast, exploring new places and creating memories that were untainted by the past. It was a time of healing and growth, and I began to feel truly happy again. However, the past has a way of resurfacing when you least expect it. One evening, I received a call from my lawyer, David. "John, I have some troubling news," he said, his tone grave. "Sarah is contesting the divorce settlement. She's claiming that she was coerced into agreeing to the terms." Shock and anger coursed through me. "What? That's ridiculous. We both agreed to the settlement in court." "I know," David replied, "but she's filed a motion, and we'll need to address it. I'm confident we can defend the original agreement, but it will require going back to court." Just when I thought I was free of the past, it had found a way to pull me back in. I explained the situation to Emma, who was as supportive as ever. "We'll get through this, John," she said firmly. "You've come so far. Don't let her drag you back down." With Emma's support and David's expertise, I prepared for another legal battle. It was exhausting and frustrating, but I refused to let Sarah's actions define my future. This time, I was ready to fight not just for my financial security, but for my peace of mind and the new life I was building. As the new court date approached, I felt a mixture of dread and determination. The shadows of the past were persistent, but I was stronger now. I had faced my demons and emerged on the other side, ready to protect the future I was creating. The journey was far from over, but I was no longer afraid. I knew that with resilience, support, and determination, I could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The day of the court hearing arrived, and with it came a mixture of anxiety and resolve. As I dressed in my suit and tie, I couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. It felt like a repeat of last year's ordeal, but this time, I was determined to come out on top. I was stronger, wiser, and ready to defend what was rightfully mine. Emma accompanied me to the courthouse, her presence a calming anchor amidst the storm of emotion swirling inside me. "You've got this, John," she said, squeezing my hand before I entered the courtroom. Her confidence in me was a source of strength, and I drew on that as I walked through the doors. Sarah was already there, seated with her lawyer, Linda. She looked composed, but there was a tension in her posture that betrayed her calm facade. As our eyes met, I felt a pang of sadness. Despite everything, there had been a time when we had loved each other deeply. But that time was gone, replaced by the cold reality of our present circumstances. The judge entered, and the courtroom settled into a tense silence. The proceedings began with opening statements, and Linda wasted no time in presenting Sarah's case. "Your Honor, my client was under significant emotional distress during the original settlement discussions. She was not in a position to make clear decisions and was coerced into an agreement that was unfairly skewed in favor of Mr. Thompson." David rose to his feet, his voice steady and confident. "Your Honor, we have ample evidence that Mrs. Thompson entered into the settlement agreement voluntarily and with full understanding of its terms. There was no coercion involved. This is a baseless attempt to renegotiate terms that were already agreed upon fairly and legally." As the arguments unfolded, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The pain of Sarah's betrayal, the struggle to rebuild my life, and the newfound happiness I had discovered with Emma and my friends. I had fought too hard to let Sarah undermine my progress now. Sarah took the stand next, recounting her version of events. She painted a picture of a woman overwhelmed by guilt and confusion, coerced into accepting a settlement she didn't fully comprehend. It was hard to listen to, knowing how much of it was a distortion of the truth. When it was my turn to testify, I took a deep breath and approached the stand. David guided me through my testimony, asking clear, concise questions that allowed me to present the facts. I spoke about the process we had gone through to reach the original settlement, the legal advice we had both received, and the fairness of the agreement. "Mr. Thompson, Did you ever coerce or pressure Mrs. Thompson into accepting the terms of the settlement? David asked. No, I did not, I replied firmly. We both had legal representation, and we both agreed to the terms after thorough discussions. Linda's cross-examination was tough, but I held my ground. She tried to paint me as manipulative, but the evidence didn't support her claims. I could see the cracks in Sarah's case beginning to show, and it bolstered my confidence. As the hearing progressed, the judge asked probing questions, keen to get to the truth. It was clear he was not swayed by emotional arguments alone and was focused on the facts. Finally, after hours of testimonies and arguments, the judge called for a recess to deliberate. The courtroom was tense with anticipation as we awaited his decision. When the judge returned, his expression was stern and impartial. After reviewing all the evidence and testimonies presented, it is clear that the original settlement was agreed upon voluntarily by both parties. There is no sufficient evidence to support the claim of coercion. Therefore, the motion to contest the settlement is denied. Relief washed over me as the judge's words sank in. It was over. Sarah's attempt to undermine the settlement had failed. I had won. As we left the courtroom, David clapped me on the back. You did great, John. This was the right outcome. Emma embraced me, her eyes filled with pride and relief. I knew you could do it. Sarah and I exchanged a final glance, a silent acknowledgement that this was truly the end. There was no victory for her here, only the consequences of her choices. She turned away, and I watched as she walked out of the courtroom, out of my life. In the days that followed, I felt a sense of closure that had eluded me for so long. The legal battles were finally over, and I could fully focus on the future without the shadow of the past looming over me. I poured my energy into my work, and the promotion opened new doors and opportunities. My team and I tackled challenging projects, and I found a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment in my career. My relationship with Emma continued to flourish. We celebrated the end of the court battle with a weekend getaway, enjoying the peace and tranquility of the countryside. It was a chance to reconnect and look forward to the future we were building together. One evening, as we sat by the fire, Emma took my hand. John, I'm so proud of you. You've been through so much, and yet you've come out stronger. I smiled, squeezing her hand. I couldn't have done it without you, Emma. Your support has meant everything to me. She leaned in, her eyes reflecting the firelight. We're in this together. Whatever comes next, we'll face it side by side. As the months turned into years, the scars of the past faded, replaced by new memories and experiences. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had led me to a place of peace and happiness I had never imagined possible. Looking back, I realized that the trials I had faced had shaped me into the person I am today. I was stronger, more resilient, and ready to embrace whatever the future held. With Emma by my side and a life rebuilt on a foundation of trust and love, I knew that I was finally free from the shadows of the past. As life began to settle into a new rhythm, the shadows of the past seemed to recede. The court battle was behind me, and I was more focused than ever on my work and my relationship with Emma. But just when it felt like I could finally move forward without looking back, an unexpected twist threatened to unravel everything. One evening, I received a call from my old friend Mark, who worked in finance and had connections in various industries. We had stayed in touch through the years, and he had been a supportive presence during the tumultuous times of my divorce. John, I came across something that I think you need to see, he said, his tone serious. Curiosity piqued, and I agreed to meet him the next day. We met at a quiet cafe, and Mark handed me a folder. I didn't want to send this over email. It's sensitive information. I opened the folder and found bank statements, financial records, and emails. As I scanned through them, a sense of dread washed over me. What is this, Mark? It's a financial trail that leads back to Sarah, he explained. It looks like she's been funneling money into a hidden account. I thought you should know. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of the documents. Why would Sarah need a hidden account? What was she planning? The discovery cast a new shadow over my hard-won peace. That evening, I shared the information with Emma. She listened carefully, her expression a mix of concern and determination. This can't be a coincidence, John. There's something more going on here. We decided to dig deeper. enlisting the help of a private investigator recommended by Mark. The investigator, a seasoned professional named Lisa, took on the case with keen interest. "Leave no stone unturned," I instructed her. "I need to know what Sarah is up to." Over the next few weeks, Lisa's investigation uncovered a web of deceit. It turned out that Sarah had been secretly siphoning money from our joint accounts during our marriage and continuing the scheme after the divorce. The hidden account was just the tip of the iceberg. Sarah had been involved in shady business dealings, using the funds to finance questionable ventures. The more we uncovered, the clearer it became that Sarah's actions weren't just about greed. They were about desperation and survival in a world she had entangled herself in. But what was most shocking was the revelation that she had an accomplice, Michael. When Lisa presented the findings, I felt a mixture of anger and betrayal all over again. Sarah and Michael had not only destroyed my marriage, but had also engaged in illegal activities, risking everything for their gain. The implications were staggering, and I knew we had to act. I contacted David, my lawyer, and presented the evidence. "We need to take this to the authorities," I told him. "Sarah and Michael can't get away with this." David agreed, and immediately started the process of filing a report with the police and the financial regulatory authorities. The investigation would take time, but I was determined to see justice served. In the meantime, I had to keep the information confidential, even from those closest to me at work. The tension of carrying such a heavy secret was palpable, but Emma's unwavering support kept me grounded. "We'll get through this, John," she said, her hand in mine. "You've come too far to let them pull you down again." The weeks turned into months as the legal wheels slowly turned. I focused on my work, finding solace in the routine and the progress we were making on new projects. My colleagues noticed a change in me, sensing the underlying stress, but I kept the details to myself, not wanting to burden them with the complexity of the situation. One evening, as I was working late at the office, my phone rang. It was Lisa. "John, I've got some news. The authorities have enough evidence to move forward. Sarah and Michael are going to be charged." Relief washed over me as the reality of her words sank in. It wasn't over yet, but this was a significant step towards justice. "Thank you, Lisa," I said, my voice steady despite the tumult of emotions within me. "I couldn't have done this without you." The news of the impending charges brought a sense of closure, but also a new set of challenges. The legal proceedings would be lengthy and complicated, and I knew that facing Sarah and Michael in court again would be emotionally taxing. Emma and I spent many evenings discussing the situation, preparing for what lay ahead. Her support was unwavering, and together we devised a plan to navigate the upcoming trials. It was clear that Sarah and Michael's actions were part of a larger scheme, and exposing their crimes would require patience and resilience. As we prepared for the next phase, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come. The journey through betrayal, loss, and rebuilding had tested me in ways I never imagined, but it had also shown me the depths of my strength and the value of true support and love. With Emma by my side and a renewed sense of purpose, I was ready to face whatever came next. The path ahead was uncertain, but I knew that together we could overcome any obstacle. The truth was finally coming to light, and with it, the promise of a future free from the shadows of the past. The days leading up to the court hearings were filled with tense anticipation. Sarah and Michael were set to face the consequences of their actions, and I found myself grappling with a complex mix of emotions: anger, vindication, and a lingering sense of sadness for what could have been. As the courtroom filled with the buzz of anticipation, I sat beside Emma, her unwavering support a comforting presence amidst the chaos. David, my lawyer, was by my side, his demeanor calm and composed as he prepared to present the evidence against Sarah and Michael. The judge entered the courtroom, and the proceedings began. Sarah and Michael were seated together, their expressions a mix of defiance and apprehension. As the charges were read out, their faces paled, and I felt a small measure of satisfaction at the sight of their discomfort. David presented the evidence methodically, laying out the financial trail that led back to Sarah and Michael. It was damning, irrefutable proof of their guilt, and I watched as their defense crumbled under the weight of the truth. Sarah's attempts to deflect blame were feeble, her arguments falling apart under David's relentless cross-examination. Michael, too, struggled to explain away his actions, his once confident demeanor replaced by a nervous uncertainty. As the trial progressed, I found myself reflecting on the events that had led to this moment. The betrayal, the heartache, and the long journey towards justice. All of it had brought me to this courtroom, where Sarah and Michael would finally face the consequences of their actions. The days turned into weeks as the trial stretched on, each day bringing new revelations and twists. Witnesses were called, evidence was presented, and the truth slowly emerged from the shadows. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge delivered the verdict. Sarah and Michael were found guilty of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The courtroom erupted into a mix of emotions, relief, vindication, and a sense of closure that had long eluded me. As Sarah and Michael were led away in handcuffs, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Justice had been served, and I could finally put the past behind me. Outside the courtroom, Emma embraced me tightly, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it, John," she said softly. "You stood up for yourself, and you won." I smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude for her unwavering support. "We did it," I corrected her. "I couldn't have done this without you." As we walked out into the sunlight, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had led me to this moment of closure and resolution. Sarah and Michael's betrayal will always be a part of my past, but it no longer defines me. With Emma by my side and the promise of a new beginning on the horizon, I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. The shadows of the past had finally been banished, and I was free to live my life on my terms, with hope, resilience, and the knowledge that justice had prevailed. With the trial behind me and justice served, a new chapter of my life began. The weight of the past had lifted, and I was ready to embrace the future with renewed optimism and purpose. Emma and I decided to celebrate the end of the legal proceedings with a trip, a chance to leave the stress and turmoil behind and focus on each other. We chose a secluded cabin in the mountains, surrounded by nature and far from the reminders of the past. As we drove through winding roads and breathtaking scenery, I felt a sense of freedom wash over me. The weight that had been pressing down on my shoulders for so long had finally been lifted, and I was filled with a renewed sense of lightness and joy. The cabin was cozy and inviting, nestled among towering trees and overlooking a tranquil lake. We spent our days hiking through the wilderness, exploring hidden trails and secret waterfalls. The beauty of nature was a balm for the soul, and with each step, I felt more alive than I had in years. In the evenings, we would return to the cabin and cook dinner together, the warmth of the fire and the sound of the wind in the trees creating a sense of peace and contentment. We talked about the future, our hopes, dreams, and plans for what lay ahead. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, Emma turned to me with a smile. "John, I have something I want to ask you." I looked at her, my heart pounding with anticipation. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, her eyes shining with emotion. "I love you, John, with all my heart, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" I felt a surge of joy and gratitude wash over me, the magnitude of her words hitting me like a wave. "Yes, Emma, 1,000 times yes," I replied, pulling her into my arms and kissing her with all the love in my heart. In that moment, as we held each other beneath the stars, I knew that the trials and tribulations of the past had led me to this place, this moment of pure happiness and contentment. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had brought me to the love of my life and the promise of a future filled with hope and possibility. As we sat together, basking in the glow of our newfound commitment, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The scars of the past will always be a part of me, but they no longer hold power over my future. With Emma by my side, I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, secure in the knowledge that together, we could overcome anything. As the stars twinkled overhead and the night enveloped us in its embrace, I knew that this was just the beginning of our journey together. A journey filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. And with that thought in my heart, I closed my eyes and let myself be swept away by the magic of the moment. With Emma by my side and a future filled with promise ahead of us, we returned from our mountain getaway, ready to embark on a new chapter of our lives together. The engagement brought a renewed sense of excitement and anticipation, and we wasted no time in planning our wedding. We chose a picturesque vineyard for the venue, surrounded by rolling hills and lush greenery, a perfect setting for our celebration of love and commitment. The planning process was a whirlwind of decisions and preparations, but with Emma's creativity and organizational skills, it was a labor of love rather than a source of stress. As the big day approached, we found ourselves swept up in a flurry of excitement and anticipation. Family and friends gathered from near and far to celebrate with us, their presence a testament to the love and support that surrounded us. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, with not a cloud in the sky. I woke up with a sense of nervous anticipation, the magnitude of the day finally sinking in. But as I looked into Emma's eyes and saw the love and joy reflected there, all my fears melted away. The ceremony was beautiful and heartfelt, a testament to the love that Emma and I shared. As we exchanged vows beneath a canopy of flowers, I felt a sense of profound gratitude wash over me. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment when I pledged my heart and soul to the woman who had become my everything. As we walked hand in hand down the aisle as husband and wife, I felt a sense of elation, unlike anything I had ever experienced. The weight of the past had been replaced by a newfound sense of freedom and possibility, and I knew that together, Emma and I could conquer anything that life threw our way. The reception was a joyous affair, filled with laughter, dancing, and heartfelt toasts. As we celebrated late into the night, surrounded by our loved ones, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the sheer abundance of love and happiness in the room. As the evening drew to a close and the last guest bid us farewell, Emma and I found ourselves alone at last, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the vineyard under the stars. We sat together on a bench, holding hands and watching as the moon rose high in the sky. "John, this has been the most perfect day of my life," Emma said softly, her voice filled with emotion. I smiled, feeling a lump form in my throat. "Mine too, Emma. I never imagined I could be this happy." Together, we looked out at the world spread out before us, a world filled with endless possibilities and adventures yet to be discovered. As we sat together in the quiet beauty of the night, I knew that no matter what the future held, as long as I had Emma by my side, I would always be home. With our wedding behind us and a lifetime of adventures ahead, Emma and I set about building the life we'd always dreamed of together. We moved into a cozy house on the outskirts of town, surrounded by nature and filled with love. As we settled into our new home, we began to make plans for the future. We talked about starting a family, about traveling the world, and about pursuing our passions and dreams. With each passing day, our bond grew stronger, and our love deepened. One of our shared dreams was to start a business together, a way to combine our skills and interests into a venture that would not only provide for our family, but also make a positive impact on the world. After much discussion and planning, we decided to open a small cafe in town, a place where people could gather, share stories, and enjoy delicious food and drinks. It was a labor of love, and we poured our hearts and souls into every aspect of the business, from the menu to the decor. The cafe quickly became a beloved community hub, attracting locals and tourists alike with its cozy atmosphere and friendly staff. Emma's talent for baking and my love of coffee proved to be a winning combination, and before long, we had a loyal customer base that kept coming back for more. But our success didn't come without its challenges. Running a business was hard work, and there were times when we felt overwhelmed by the demands of entrepreneurship. But with each obstacle we faced, we grew stronger and more resilient, learning valuable lessons along the way. Through it all, Emma and I stood by each other's side, supporting and encouraging one another through the ups and downs. Our love was the foundation upon which we built our future, and it gave us the strength to overcome any obstacle that stood in our way. As the years passed, our cafe thrived, becoming a beloved fixture in the community. We expanded our menu, added new features, and even started offering catering services for special events. But no matter how busy we became, we always made time for each other, cherishing the moments we shared. Looking back on our journey, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the life we had built together. From the ashes of betrayal and heartache had risen a love stronger than I ever thought possible, a love that had led us to this moment of happiness and fulfillment. As Emma and I stood hand in hand, watching the sunset over the horizon, I knew that our journey was far from over. But as long as we had each other, I was confident that we could face whatever the future held, together, as partners in love and life. As I sit here, pen in hand, reflecting on the journey that has brought me to this moment, I am overwhelmed by a sense of gratitude and awe. The twists and turns of fate, the challenges and triumphs, the love and loss, all of it has shaped me into the person I am today. I think back to the dark days of betrayal and heartache when it felt like the weight of the world was crushing me beneath its weight. But even in those moments of despair, there was a glimmer of hope, a spark of resilience that refused to be extinguished. It was that spark that led me to Emma, the love of my life, and together, we have weathered the storms and emerged stronger than ever. Our love has been a beacon of light in the darkness, guiding us through the darkest nights and leading us toward a brighter tomorrow. As I look around me now, surrounded by the warmth and love of our home, I am filled with a profound sense of peace. The wounds of the past have healed, leaving behind only scars that serve as a reminder of the strength that lies within me. I am grateful for the lessons I have learned along the way, for the pain that has made me appreciate the beauty of life, for the challenges that have made me stronger, and for the love that has filled my heart with joy. As I write these words, I am filled with a sense of hope and excitement for the future. There are still challenges ahead, still mountains to climb and rivers to cross, but I face them with a newfound sense of confidence and determination. For I know that no matter what the future holds, as long as I have Emma by my side, I can overcome anything. Our love is the foundation upon which we have built our lives, and it will carry us through whatever trials and tribulations may come our way. So here's to the future, to the adventures yet to be had, the dreams yet to be realized, and the love that will guide us through it all. As I close this chapter of my life and turn the page to the next, I do so with a heart full of gratitude and a soul brimming with hope. For the journey is far from over, and I am ready to embrace whatever lies ahead, hand in hand with the woman I love. And with that thought in my heart, I lay down my pen, ready to face the future with open arms and a spirit of adventure. As I reflect on the journey that has brought me to this moment, I am filled with a profound sense of gratitude for all that I have experienced and achieved. But even as one chapter of my life comes to a close, another begins, and the journey continues. Emma and I have faced many challenges together, and each one has only strengthened our bond and deepened our love. But as we look to the future, we know that there will be new challenges to overcome and new adventures to be had. One of the dreams that Emma and I have always shared is the desire to travel the world, to explore new cultures, meet new people, and experience the beauty and diversity of our planet. And now, as we stand on the threshold of a new chapter, we are more determined than ever to turn that dream into reality. We begin by making a list of destinations we want to visit, places that have captured our imaginations and stirred our souls. From the bustling streets of Tokyo to the serene beaches of Bali, from the majestic landscapes of Patagonia to the ancient ruins of Machu Picchu, our list is filled with dreams waiting to be realized. But we know that planning a trip of this magnitude will take time and careful consideration. We must save money, make arrangements for our home and business, and decide on an itinerary that will allow us to make the most of our time abroad. As we research and plan, the excitement builds, and we find ourselves counting down the days until we can embark on our grand adventure. We spend evenings poring over maps and guidebooks, imagining the sights and sounds that await us in far-off lands. But even as we dream of the adventures that lie ahead, we know that the journey itself is just as important as the destination. It is the moments shared, the laughter and the tears, the triumphs and the setbacks, that truly make life worth living. And so, as we prepare to set off on our journey, we do so with open hearts and minds, ready to embrace whatever the world has in store for us. We know that no matter where the road may lead us, as long as we are together, we will find happiness and fulfillment in every moment. As I look at Emma, her eyes shining with excitement and anticipation, I know that our journey together is far from over. It is just beginning. And with that thought in my heart, I take her hand in mine, and together, we step forward into the great unknown, ready to write the next chapter of our lives, one adventure at a time. As Emma and I embarked on our journey to explore the world, we found ourselves immersed in a whirlwind of new experiences and unforgettable moments. From the bustling streets of Tokyo to the tranquil beaches of Bali, each destination offered its unique charm and beauty, leaving us awestruck and inspired. Our travels took us to places we had only dreamed of, allowing us to immerse ourselves in different cultures, sample exotic cuisines, and connect with people from all walks of life. We wandered through ancient temples, hiked through pristine wilderness, and marveled at the wonders of the natural world. But amidst the excitement and adventure, there were also moments of uncertainty and challenge. We encountered language barriers, navigated unfamiliar transportation systems, and grappled with the inevitable ups and downs of life on the road. Yet through it all, Emma and I remained steadfast in our commitment to each other, drawing strength from our love and shared sense of purpose. We faced each obstacle with determination and resilience, turning every setback into an opportunity for growth and learning. As we traversed the globe, we discovered new passions and interests, from scuba diving in the crystal-clear waters of the Great Barrier Reef to hiking the rugged trails of the Andes. Each experience brought us closer together, forging memories that would last a lifetime. But perhaps the greatest gift of our journey was the opportunity to deepen our connection with each other and with the world around us. As we sat beneath the stars, sharing stories and dreams, we realized that the true beauty of travel lies not in the places we visit, but in the people we meet and the moments we share with them. As our journey drew to a close, we returned home with hearts full of gratitude and a newfound appreciation for the richness and diversity of life. Our travels have changed us in ways we could never have imagined, opening our minds and hearts to new possibilities and perspectives. But even as we settled back into the rhythm of daily life, the spirit of adventure remained alive within us, ready to fuel our next journey into the unknown. Emma and I knew that no matter where life may take us, as long as we are together, the possibilities are endless, and the adventure never truly ends. As our journey around the world came to an end, Emma and I found ourselves filled with a mix of emotions: joy at the memories we had made, sadness at leaving behind the places we had grown to love, and excitement at the prospect of returning home. The flight back was a bittersweet experience, filled with reflections on the adventures we had shared and anticipation for the reunion with our loved ones. As the plane touched down on familiar soil, we felt a sense of relief wash over us, a feeling of coming home after a long and exhilarating journey. Our return was met with open arms and warm embraces from family and friends who had eagerly awaited our homecoming. There were tears of joy and laughter as we recounted our tales of adventure and shared souvenirs and stories from our travels. But amidst the celebration, there was also a sense of readjustment as we settled back into the rhythm of daily life. The sights and sounds of our travels still echoed in our minds, and it would take time to readjust to the familiar routines of home. Yet, as we unpacked our bags and settled back into our house, we found ourselves filled with a renewed appreciation for the comforts and familiarities of home. The simple pleasures of a home-cooked meal, a warm bed, and the company of loved ones took on new meaning after our time away. As we reconnected with our community and resumed our roles in our business, we carried with us the lessons and experiences of our journey. We found ourselves approaching life with a newfound sense of gratitude and perspective, cherishing each moment and opportunity that came our way. But even as we settled back into the routines of daily life, the spirit of adventure remained alive within us, fueling our dreams and aspirations for the future. Our journey may have come to an end, but the memories and experiences we shared would stay with us forever, shaping the people we had become. And as we looked out at the world spread out before us, we knew that the greatest adventure of all was still ahead of us. The adventure of building a life together, filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. And with that thought in our hearts, we embraced the future, ready to face whatever challenges and joys lay ahead, hand in hand.